All right, so thank you so much, MEP Lukas Sieper, for being here today with me, with the New Federalist Leaders.
My pleasure.
So, I get right into it. You're very young, you've just turned 28, and you're fresh into your first year as an MEP. I wanted to ask you, how does it feel to represent your generation, my generation, at the European institutions? And what do you miss the most from your life previously, before you became an MEP?
I will answer the second question first because
Yeah.
it's a more easy one. Um, I miss my family, my friends, my girlfriend every day. How does it feel to be MEP of a young age? I think there's a great feeling that is very important to also have the young generation represented. As you maybe know, the average age of an MEP is 55. So we are not many of us, and therefore, especially the support that I get from young people is astonishing. Here at the I had wonderful conversations with a wide array of young people from all around the world and especially Europe, of course. It's also hard because you have to fight for the respect double time, I think.
Yeah.
There's what we also know from other circumstances, a glass ceiling for young people where you have to break through over and over again because you are young and then they think you are less experienced
Yeah.
automatically. Um, so all in all, and I would have never thought that this at this early point in my life I would have this kind of position, and I'm just very grateful.
Yeah, I see. Thank you. And I mean, before politics, I think you did some voluntary military service
Yes.
in Germany, and I wanted to ask you, how did that experience shape your views on European civic duty, solidarity, maybe even defense? Especially because I think you proposed mandatory social or military service
Yes.
after school. So I wanted your opinion on that, and why did you propose such a
So
thing?
one of the two main reasons why I signed up for the military was the
Yeah.
feeling of duty.
Yeah.
I wanted to give something back to society,
Okay.
and in the same way as people do a social year, I thought that military service fits me more. I like the sport aspect about it.
Yeah.
I like that you're outside the whole time and this idea of camaraderie, which I experienced also. And I also did it, and that shaped me um, to, how to say in English, to get myself in line a little bit. You know,
Okay. Okay.
I was always someone who was dancing around the rules, and I thought it
Okay.
would be good for me to
For the
get some
character. Yeah.
discipline, yes,
Okay.
for the character to shape me a little bit. And I am till this day, even now, my military service is 10 years was 10 years ago. I'm
Oh.
convinced that it's a very important part of defense that people sign up voluntarily,
Okay.
because if you have just mandatory conscription, um, your army will always lack motivation. And therefore, I hope that my example can also be a motivation to other young people to sign up. Of course, also social year is an option, or you can also work for an NGO abroad. But I'm very, very much convinced, and this time has strengthened that feeling that you should work also for society at some point in
In
your life.
general terms, in
Yeah,
any kind or
but
shape or form. I
but
see.
also like in a block, that's what I think is so important, that you have, because so many people do civil society work, right?
Hmm.
But I think there should be a time in your life, a year or
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
don't do anything else but
Anything else?
only that.
Okay. Okay. I see. Yeah. It's a valid. I have never thought of that this way, because so many people, as you said, already give back to society on their own terms and at their own time. But it's also a nice perspective. So you are the founder and the leader of the Party of Progress. You found this party in 2020 at 23 years old, which is kind of old. So why did you do it? What made you do it? Did this experience at the military service in Germany had anything to do with it? I don't know.
I would say the military experience was helpful because a party, in some ways, is an organization that you can compare with an army.
Okay.
You have different departments. You have a somewhat hierarchical structure.
Mm-hmm.
So, funnily enough, what I experienced, that many of the best members of the party, in the sense who participates the most, are people who were former military or
Oh,
police.
really?
They are the most reliable in
Okay.
many senses, because they are used to act and work in some organization
Hmm.
that is on a broader scope than a company or something like that. How did it come to pass? It was a drinking idea with my two best friends in a student flat.
Of course.
Um, One of these many stories that I think every young person experience from then to then, that after a few beer you talk about changing the world and that something needs to be done. And we wrote down a list of 15 ideas just out of fun for our party, the best party of all time.
Ah, okay.
And then we just founded the party the next day, actually, and just kept going. And at every election that we could get our hands on, we run. And for the European election, it was the first time that we were ever on the ballot. And we had
Okay.
2,500 euro campaign budget only, and 20 active party members, and we got a 250,000 votes. So I think if there can be anything taken away from that, that maybe you should go through with more of your silly drinking ideas.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, true. And were you still drunk when you like actually created the party the day after, or
No,
okay,
no, no, no,
you sobered up?
yes, we saw it.
Okay, that's quite astonishing. So now you are an MEP and you are quite popular online as well on the internet platform. Your TikTok account has thousands of followers, hundreds of thousands of likes. Since you spoken about learning how political communication really works from the comment section, I believe, I wanted to ask you, what's one comment or one message, one DM that you got from maybe a follower, young follower possibly, that really genuinely surprised you or shocked you or moved you in any way? I don't know.
I think the one message that moved me the most is that one follower wrote me that my work in the LGBTQ plus intergroup and the social media content that I do out of it gave him also the power that he needed for his coming out. To be honest to his parents about that he is into men, and
Okay.
having this impact, being able to give a young boy courage
Yeah.
for such a step, which, as we know from our society, is still today
Yeah.
often difficult.
Yeah.
That really moved me.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, this is related to a question that I was about to ask you later, but I can ask this now because you are, after all, the vice president of the LGBTI intergroup. So I saw you online and in Strasbourg speaking clearly against hate speech and transphobia. It was quite refreshing, personally, to say a young man really speaking up against transphobia and even speaking against a direct colleague of you. It was quite unfamiliar view, because it doesn't happen very often. So I wanted to
I
ask
heard that,
you,
yeah.
what must the EU do to remain a credible defender of human dignity regarding trans rights, and how do you ensure real political backing, despite not just symbolic gestures for queer rights across Europe?
I think what the EU should do on the short term is get Hungary back in line and
Yeah.
use the treaty violation mechanisms
Hmm.
to actually make sure that it's abundantly clear that the pride ban that Hungary imposed is illegal, that the way that they're now wrote that child protection law, where it can debunk any other rights of the people, is not in accordance with the European treaties. I think on the long term, we need to keep on to finance civil society efforts.
Okay.
We talked with a lot of civil society members from the Pride community, from inside Europe and outside Europe, and because of the cut of USAID, of course, and also because of the backslash against LGBTQIA plus people that we see in many parts of the world, their work has become harder.
Yeah.
Um, After the last decade was quite positive for them, now it's a bit darker times,
Hmm.
and I think that's something where we can, with a little bit of our budget, we can achieve a lot. Um, Now I forgot the last part of your question.
I mean, you really answer like, how can we ensure real political backing?
Ah, yeah.
not only symbolic gestures, the pride flags and
Yeah,
everything. But
yeah,
I think you answered
yeah.
a little bit on that. And a follow-up question on what you just said, I wanted to ask you, so are you against the decision of the Commission to not send any kind of commissioner or high-level representative to the Pride,
Yeah.
to the Budapest Pride? And will you go to the Budapest Pride maybe?
I will go
Oh,
there.
okay.
It's already everything in planning.
Planet, okay.
And I will also next week on the debate speak on that topic again. I think the Commission should have definitely sent someone. Um, I know that the Commission wants to be neutral in every topic, but they have to realize that at least they have to see what's happening. So I think a commissioner, the best pick would of course be the Commissioner for Equality.
Yeah.
She should be there and just watch. And if you can just go there and watch it without saying anything, that would be possible. But not going at all, this is a sign for the LGBTQIA plus community that the Commission doesn't take their
Doesn't, yeah,
fears seriously.
a bad message in general. I
Yeah.
see. Okay, thank you. And well, you just said that you will talk about this issue next week. So I wanted to ask you, since you are one of the most active MEPs actually in the chamber, since you have over 150 speeches
Yes.
just in your first year, I wanted to ask you what motivates you to speak up so often, and what issues do you fight the hardest for?
So the hardest I fight for international trade law in a
Yeah.
humanitarian sense, in a
Okay.
reliable sense, sustainable, but also economy friendly. Because that's what I studied. I studied international law with a focus on international trade law and humanitarian law. Um, Apart from that, of course, as we talk now, the LGBTQIA plus issues. And in general, why do I speak so much? Because I think it's a shame that the plenary is empty all
Yeah.
the time. I understand that this is what they call a working parliament, where all the prep work is done outside of the plenary, but that when there's outside of the votes, always maximum 20 MEPs present, and that's how it is. That shows me that this parliament went too far away from the classical idea of having a debate in
Debate, right?
public in the eyes of the people, because no one watches committee meetings even though they are live streamed. No one knows how the delegations work. The group meetings are all behind closed doors. So that's actually the plenary is actually the arena of our democracy here in Europe, but it's empty, and that's big mistake.
Yeah, sad. Yeah. So as you mentioned, you studied international trade, and in fact you sit on the committees on international trade and transport. So I wanted to ask you, how are you working to, if you are on making those fields more sustainable and future proof, really?
So the main two angles that we're working on is on the one hand to update the CSR regulation.
Okay.
The CSR regulations of the European Union that were introduced in the past were in general followed a good approach, but they were too complicated for the companies to follow,
Okay.
especially small and medium enterprises suffer with that. I know the situation from Germany that many enterprises that have 10 to 20 employees needed to create an extra employee spot just to comply with the CSR regulation. So we want to make this more efficient, and also maybe explore the possibility of using AI
Mm.
instead of human resources for that. And the second angle is tariffs, which have been become, of course, something that we also have to react on.
Yeah.
But now we in Europe, actually, we are on the world stage in a stronger position than ever before. I think we have the traditional power blocks. Russia is showing the whole world its face now.
Yeah.
When it comes to China, the people start to realize that their new Silk Road is more a debt trap than anything else.
Yeah.
USA went insane, and, and we are
Let's not mention the USA now because it will be a rabbit hole. So
and we are the only reliable big bloc on the
that's
world
true. That's
stage,
true. Right.
and therefore we can be a bit more confident when it comes to deciding what goods on what tariffs we let inside our single market. So that's basically the two angles: the update of the CSR regulation and using tariffs as a tool also for the
to
former.
improve our position. I see. And well, you are also on the committee on trade, and I think I saw a reel of you or an Instagram story maybe of you coming. Either to Berlin or to Strasbourg from Brussels. I don't remember. And you said you were complaining, actually, saying, "Oh, I had to take a plane because I couldn't take
Yeah,
a train." So, since young people here at the European Youth Event care deeply about climate change and how to respond to it, what's your stance on sustainable transport infrastructure, and how do you see the future of this field in the EU?
I think it's paramount because, as I said in this video, I don't like to take a flight from Brussels to Berlin. That's not You're not even 2 hours in the air. It's completely
Yeah.
ridiculous. But by train, it would be 9 to 10 hours. So when I became a member of the European Parliament, I was shocked on
Yeah.
how bad actually the transport system inside Europe is. I mean, at the beginning of my term, I was also for a time member of the Transport Committee as a substitute, as the main MEP left the committee. Also,
Okay.
I was not able to be a substitute any longer. But I think if we do not manage to update our transport system and to have a reliable railway transport, especially, and maybe put more goods on the rivers, then we will definitely lose the battle against climate change. And it hinders the economy enormously. It hinders social mobility. It hinders stuff like young people traveling Europe.
Mm.
So I think infrastructure should be one of the very few top priorities of the state, and in that sense also the European Union.
Mm. And do you think it is a priority for at least this commission, or
No,
no? Okay.
no.
That's okay. That's a strong no. Okay. Also, such as yourself, but also such as a leader of your party, you have defined yourself as a pragmatic, non-ideological politician. What does that mean in practice, especially within the European Parliament, where parties, national parties, are divided in European groups,
Yeah.
and the Party of Progress is not part of any. So,
So on the one hand, it's a bit more complicated to create the voting lists, I can tell you, because
okay,
we have to look at every single issue, which we do. We have a great team. We use the parties of great support, and we use AI also for that to check everything. And it gives you also more freedom, though, because I can decide on what do I want to say. I don't have to worry that I'm
okay,
going against any group line. Of course, I have to stay with my party line, and all my speeches are written on the basis of our party program.
yeah,
But yeah, I'm more free on that. And when it comes to the legislative work itself, we had, of course, we had to work to gain the trust. That's also one reason why I hold so many speeches, because I wanted all the MEPs to know me. And so 1 month ago, we started to table amendments in the Intercommittee and the Eurolat Parliamentary Assembly that was happening in Peru. And we tabled, I think, in total 10 amendments, and 8 of them passed, which I think is more
amazing.
than you can ask
Yeah,
for.
yeah, it's
And
amazing.
it's something that everyone told me in the beginning, that it's not possible for a non-attached to actually do legislative work. And now it took some time to gain the trust, but now we're here, and now we can work just like any other member of
MEP,
parliament.
and yeah, of course. So since the Party of Progress is so new and grassroots in a way, because it came from free students, what sets it apart from other political parties more educated, more established in Germany or Europe in general?
So I think our biggest advantage in comparison to all the traditional parties
Yeah.
is our strong IT competence. Our party functions fully digital. Of
Okay.
course, there's also in-person meetings, especially for social connection. But we work on 2 platforms. One is called Nextcloud, which you can imagine like Microsoft Teams, but also with you can do polls, you can have an email server, you have a lot of stuff which is open source and self-programmed. And the other one is where so that's where the organizational work takes place, and the other one where we actually define our program, our positions. We work on Decidem, which some readers maybe know. It's a civil It's a platform that was also established by the city of Barcelona to do public polls with the
Okay.
population. So that gives us the power to work from everywhere with everyone. So we have members in all of Germany, but all of them work constantly together, constantly work on these platforms, sit in online meetings together, and as I told you before when I explained our campaign budget of 2,500 euros for the European election, due to our strong IT competences and our strong platforms, we are able to pack a punch in a far higher weight class than a party of our size should normally be able to. And I don't think that is something that the other parties will catch up soon because we only have these platforms because we have 5 to 10 party members who are programmers,
Okay.
IT specialists
Yeah.
who programmed on that for 5 years now. And if you would if you would ask to have the same platforms given to you, you would need to spend, I think, millions in euros to an IT company, and that's
But they did
nothing.
it for the sake of the party
They did it
as
for the sake of the
volunteers.
party,
Okay,
exactly.
okay.
So, and that's something that I've not heard any party do actually. Of course, they also use digital platforms, but for us, the whole party is tailored around this. So we are at the very forefront of political digitalization.
Yeah. So, in fact, I saw a reel of you saying, "I'm not falling for the propaganda. Say AI is bad." I guess this is why because you
Yeah.
rely a lot on AI, artificial intelligence. Okay. I see. I see. So, you have also argued for more Europeans' defense capacity and less reliance on the US. Also because you support continued military aid to Ukraine. Since our readers are very much interested in the topic of European integration and European federalism, even, I wanted to ask you what is your stance regarding more European integration, maybe even European federalism, not only in the field of defense, but in general, yeah, the European level.
I think it's just a matter of time until the
Okay.
nation states will fade away and the European Union will take over that role. Um, if you ask me, I think 50 years from now, the concept of a nation state in Europe will be gone.
Okay.
That is right now. It's something that we still need. I think our generation and the generation that comes now after us, um, they are the first ones who actually consider themselves Europeans, to have a really like a European identity.
Yeah.
Our parents, our grandparents, they are not there yet, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
think that will change
Yeah.
in their lifetime, which is okay, of course, because they didn't grow up in this
Yeah.
European environment. We talk a lot about the union taking over competences and the question, what is the European Union? I always found it funny when I studied international law that the European Union is something which we call a supranational
Yeah.
organization, which is a legal construct sui generis, so of its own kind.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, as a jurist, as someone that studies law, often when we claim something to be a sui generis, a thing of its own kind, we just do that because we know that from a law political side there could not be an agreement. So the EU is a state. We might not have something that is called the constitution, and our government is maybe called commission, but half of the legislation that affects the day of
Yeah.
the
Or even
everyday life
more.
of
Yeah.
the people is done here in the
Yeah.
European Parliament,
Yeah.
and the Commission is working as a government in everything but name, and we have a European police force with Europol. So and maybe the only thing is it's lacking an army, and I think
Okay.
there this will also gradually happen. I think, and that's also what we are advocating for. We will first, in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see an extension of the binational course,
Mm-hmm.
like the French-German core or the French-Dutch core that we have.
Okay.
Um, and then at some point there will be something like European Armed Forces. I think maybe also mostly responsible for international peacekeeping missions. And then also for 30, 40 years from now on, we have a European army instead of the national armies. because we don't need the national army. We
Yeah.
will not fight against the Portuguese or the Danish with our
Hopefully.
Bundeswehr. You know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's very optimistic, and I agree on everything. Maybe we will not call it European Army because we cannot call things with their own name. We will call it European piece of I don't
Yeah,
know, peace forces. I don't know,
yeah, would be
but
good.
it's a beautiful vision that I fully support. And so because you said the European project has been going on for decades now, and it has only improved and
Yeah,
going on. And you said in 50 years we will be a European federation with this name or not. So I wanted to ask you, basically you're saying that the youngest generation and the future generation of Europeans will be more and more in favor of the European Union and of more European integration, because what we are seeing right now is that instead, I mean, maybe this is true, but also there is quite a rise of far right voices and far right movements. So, how can we deal with that sentiment? Um,
I think we have to stop believing that we are losing the fight.
okay,
That's a sentiment. Populism is on the rise. Extremism is on the rise. Yes, but there is still more of us than of them.
okay.
That's something that when you look at the polls, for example, in Germany, all we do is we talk about the um, Arschlöcher von der AfD.
Oh,
Um, so we all talk about the AfD, right?
AfD,
And
yeah.
you can now say, yeah, the AfD has 25% in the polls. It's a horrible thing for Germany, especially. But that also means that 75% do not vote for the AfD. And
That's true.
also, I have a bit of historical lens. We now are in a period in history where the reactionary forces in society are on the rise again. We just came out of a decade where the progressive forces were on top. And if you look at European history, that happened uh, since hundreds of years. When there was the French Revolution and the first democratic revolution in Germany at the um, 18 and 19th century. After that was the Vienna Congress,
Yeah.
where the reactionary forces came on top again.
Yes.
Then after the First World War, we saw a more liberal democracy
Mm.
expanding, which then led to the most reactionary
Yeah.
forces in history, exterminatory forces, to come to power. And after that, we saw again in the 50s, 60s a period of upheaval, followed then again by more conservatism in the 70s and 80s, and so on and so on. Right now, it's a reactionary time. That doesn't mean that it's gonna go like this, and I don't believe so. And if you look at the grand scheme of things, things have been progressing in a progressive way always. It's like a stock market.
Okay, but always tending to a
Yes.
more progressive society. Okay, let's hope you're right, and that this is just a phase. Um, so one last serious question I want to ask you, because I saw you holding signs and regarding the Uyghurs
Yeah.
persecution in China, and you've been vocal about that, and not many MEPs talk about that and talk about China in that terms or even in bad terms, really, which is hypocritical in this time of year because we have blocs and superpowers that we have to hold accountable, and
Yeah.
China is not much held accountable as much as the US or Russia.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, how should the EU balance its economic ties with China while standing up for human rights, such as those of the Uyghurs?
I think in a perfect world we could just stop doing business with China.
Mm.
Because morally that's what we should do. They put people in concentration camps, they forcefully marriage them, they torture them. So I will just say that as a German, the only thing that's lacking there is a gas chamber, if you ask me.
Mm.
And but we're not in a perfect world. We need China. We cannot ignore China. Our economies are heavily interconnected, and we rely on each other also, especially in a time where our more traditional partner in the US, as said, went insane, and Russia is waging war in Europe. Um, I think what we need to do is to do not allow the Chinese to silence their crimes, because that's what they want to do. They want people not to talk about the Uyghurs. They want to suppress Uyghur culture. They want the world to forget that these people ever existed. So we can still do business with China, and we need to, and we should do also. But at the same time, every time that we meet them, we should remind them that we do not forget about the Uyghurs, and that we will speak up on that, and help also those people. Um, I work a lot with the Uyghur Youth Initiative, um, which is a great NGO from Germany, and they host cultural events. And I think we have to, in the same way that we need to trade with China and have to put our morals aside on that. For every step where we put our morals aside, we have to do another step where we redeem ourselves by supporting the Uyghurs or any other suppressed by people that are suppressed by China. And also, I think we should never see China as a friend, and also not as a partner, but just as a competitor.
Okay, I think it's like classified as such right now as a competitor, at least geopolitically. I don't know economically, but the point is, how can the EU do what you're saying? Like, yeah, dealing with China economically on an economic point of view, but still being vocal about that. Wouldn't that affect our economic affairs with China?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
But that's the price that we need to pay.
Okay.
If we, of course, if we would just be accept that and be silent, then they would be more doing even more business with us. But I think we need to draw a line at some point. The European Union is not an entity that is only based on the idea of what's best for the Europeans. The European Union is a concept, is an institution based on the concept of enlightenment, of humanism. This union is meant to be a beacon of liberty, of freedom, of the rule of law, and therefore we need to also be a haven for people who do not have that, and we have to stand up for that and then suffer the consequences for that. We are not Russia, we are not China, we are not now the US, who only care about themselves. We need always to care about the world and show the world that there can be a better place.
That was beautifully said. And since you described the Europe beautifully, and I agree on that, I wanted to ask you something that was not on the agreed questions, but I
Yeah,
will ask you, and feel free to not answer if it's not okay. I will just cut it out. It's okay.
no worry.
I wanted to ask you, since we need to set an example, do you think there are other areas where EU is lacking a good, proper response? I'm thinking about sea rescuing people trying to get into Europe, or migration policies in general. I'm thinking about Gaza, Israel right now, where the EU, or I mean, in words, the European Commission is often speaking in favor of both Israelis and Palestinians, but EU member states, or most of them, send arms to
Yeah.
Israel. So, are we setting a good example here regarding these two issues, or not, as a EU?
I think our gravest mistake when it comes to the Gaza situation, but also many other fields, is that we do not stand up to our commitment to international law.
Mm.
That also goes for sea rescue, that goes for trade relations, that goes for environmental policies. There are many, many, many fields where we do not stand up to international law. We have a tendency in Europe of only following through with the international law if it suits our interests.
Okay.
And that's an idea, and that's a habit that I, as maybe because I'm a jurist, but I strongly oppose. Law
Right.
is law.
Yeah.
And just to give you an example, I think if you look at my speeches, if you look at my videos, you will see that I have a quite balanced approach on the Gaza situation.
Mhm.
But one thing for me is abundantly clear. For example, that if Benjamin Netanyahu enters European soil, he needs to be locked up because there is an outstanding warrant by the International Criminal Court of Justice.
Yeah.
And even hinting at not doing this is a breach of law.
Yeah.
And that's what I said. Europe is a legal entity. The European Union works because it's based on treaties, on laws, on regulations, and we need to stand more by that in every situation. Even though it, of course, I can say this as a German. Of course, it would hurt us to detain the Israeli Prime Minister. That's not a nice concept. But if there is this warrant, then there is this warrant. I don't care who he is. If he's the Israeli Prime Minister or if he's some guy from the street, doesn't matter. And in the same way, we when we look at the climate protection, yeah, we often um, do not follow through with stuff like the Paris Agreement. Till this day, we signed a contract there. We signed obligations there, and not fulfilled.
They're not
No
taken.
one knows why. Or when it comes to the defense of Ukraine, yes, now we're sending a lot, but remember how it started. We started. We in Germany we started with fucking 5,000 helmets instead of. And we knew from the very beginning this is an illegal war of aggression,
Yeah.
and that we have a duty to defend the attacked country. But now we took 3 years to deliver them everything that you actually need to fight a
Yes.
modern war. And I could do more and more and more and more
Examples.
examples, but I think that is our most important task going forward. Um, I said before, we are a pillar of light. We can be an example for the world, and I think the strongest area where we need to be an example is the further positive development of international law,
Yeah.
because international law is what has driven this progressive societal development that we
Okay.
see on the global stage
Yeah.
since basically thousands of years.
Yeah, that's a very good point of view because European institutions as well are based on your treaties that are basically our
Yeah.
constitution. So that's a very good point. Yes. So we're almost done with the interview. I will just finish with a lighter question. I wanted to ask if, like in your first year as an MEP, what's the most I don't know, surreal or unreal, funny or awkward moment that you have experienced
Oh,
so far?
that's a good question. I have to think about that. I think I had many moments like this. What still strikes me to this day is when I suddenly see all these very famous politicians in person. You know, I remember in the first week I talked with Ursula von der Leyen
Okay.
when I told her that I didn't vote for her. Uh, I was at the funeral of a former German president, Horst Köhler, and I sat next to very famous German members of parliament, or I spoke with the president of Germany,
Yeah.
Frank-Walter Steinmeier, and it also shows that I'm a big political nerd because I'm starstruck in that situations. So I think that's what also drives me the most, and what makes me so happy about this job here is I'm actively participating in our democracy at the highest level. I think you cannot be more involved in the democratic system than being a parliamentarian.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because for many people, our democracy consists of their one voting day every few years. That's it. And so every time I meet these people, these famous, important people who serve our European Union or our states so many years, I realize where I am and what I that my party achieved to bring me here, and that really makes me happy.
Yeah. Last follow-up question: how did Ursula von der Leyen take it when you said that you didn't vote for her?
I told her that we had a basic democratic process in our party. We had 890 members and non-members also from friend parties voted, and she got 83% no.
Okay.
So I told her that, and then I told her, but also I told her that I hope that she proves us wrong,
Okay.
and that she proves that I should have voted for her. And then she laughed, and she said that she hopes so too. So
Okay.
quite a good response, I would say.
A good exchange. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
We are
you,
done
my
with this
pleasure.
interview. Thank you so much for being so available and approachable. And I think it's very important for MEPs such as yourself to be, to interacting
Yeah.
with the youth, especially during these events. So thank you so much.
It's one thing I would have brought it up if you asked a question in that regard, but I think it's important that the press also writes about that. There is round about only 20 MEPs present here at the I.
Yeah, I know, I know.
That,
As a journalist, we received a press kit, and I only could contact, 15 MEPs or something like that. I
that's
know.
terrible.
And
That's terrible,
yeah,
really. Like
yeah,
that's not even, it's not even bad. It's terrible, you know.
yeah. And out of the 5 I contacted, only 3 replied.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I know.
my pleasure. No, I think it's also from the legal perspective.